have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country.
In their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE.
Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God.
Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, just told a decorated military veteran and sitting senator that she cannot trust books, except the Bible. A man who cheated on not one, but two wives. A man who settled a sexual misconduct allegation at a California bar in 2017. A man whose own colleagues at Fox News reportedly called him a reckless drunk who drank on air. That man just cited the Bible as the only trustworthy text in recorded human civilization.
Senator Slotkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those people,
officers.
Throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so
to...
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate. There's like a cat fight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
And I would also reiterate how we began, that there will be a classified portion of this 15 minutes after we adjourn.
She didn't just ask questions. She performed an autopsy on a man who thought he was still alive. She walked in with one document, one name, Mark Esper, Trump's own Secretary of Defense. A man confirmed by Trump's own Republican Senate, who wrote in his own published book that Donald Trump personally ordered him to deploy active duty soldiers against unarmed protesters on American streets and shoot them in the legs. Not a Democratic source, not CNN, not MSNBC, not a leaked memo, a book written by a Republican about a Republican president describing a Republican order to shoot American citizens, and Hegseth's response to this documented, published, on the record historical fact. I'd be careful what you read in books. She asks him a yes or no question, the simplest possible construction in the English language. Have you authorized the military to detain or arrest protesters? Yes or no. 4 letters maximum, 1 syllable, a word that even Pete Hegseth's Fox and Friends teleprompter could handle at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning with a hangover. And what does he do? He talks about illegals. He pivots to ICE. He accuses her of political games. He smirks. He burns the clock. He does the verbal equivalent of a man who just robbed a bank, explaining at length why banks are actually the real criminals. And Slotkin, God bless this woman, doesn't flinch. She looks at him and says something that no senator has said in a congressional hearing in living memory. Be a man, list it out. And then she says he had more guts and balls than you. About Esper, a Republican who served Trump and refused an illegal order because he had the moral architecture that Pete Hegseth apparently traded for a Fox News contract and a 3rd marriage. Watch Hegseth's face at that exact moment. Watch it carefully, because that is not the face of a confident man. That is the face of a man who has spent his entire professional life being surrounded by people who are not allowed to tell him no, suddenly sitting across from someone who is not only allowed but constitutionally required to do exactly that. That face is the face of a man who just realized the teleprompter is broken and he never learned the actual words. She stopped looking at him. She found the service members in that room, the ones in uniform who cannot speak, who cannot object, who swore an oath to follow lawful orders and are now watching their institution get stripped for parts by a man who thinks books are dangerous, and she spoke directly to them. Please go forth with the integrity and the morality you carried before this administration took us down this path. Do what's right, even if asked to do otherwise. That is not a political line. A speechwriter did not write that. That is a woman who served alongside these people, looking at them and saying, I see what they're doing to you. I'm sorry. Don't let them take who you are. Pete Hegseth had no response to that moment, because there is no response. Because the man who tells soldiers to be warriors on television has never once in his career looked a soldier in the eye and told them the truth. Elissa Slotkin just did it for him. Subscribe and comment below about the Pete Hegseth remarks and hearing. Because when the Secretary of Defense tells you not to read books, someone has to keep reading.